I just got it. You usually do.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's always quiet here. All right, call this meeting to order and start with roll call.
Mayor Sherman.
Here.
Councilor Guerrero.
Here.
Councilor Klink-Cameron.
Here.
Councilor Lindstrom.
Here.
Councilor Spradlin. Councilor Tyree.
Here.
Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to our agenda for tonight? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the agenda for the regular meeting July 24th, 2023. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Councilor Lindstrom.
Yes.
Councilor Guerrero.
Yes.
Councilor Klink-Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Tyree.
Yes.
Mayor Sherman.
Yes. We've all had a chance to look through the minutes for our last meeting. Does anybody have any additions, corrections, or revisions? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes for the regular meeting of July 10th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Councilor Guerrero.
Yes.
Councilor Tyree.
Yes.
Councilor Lindstrom.
Yes.
Councilor Klink-Cameron.
Yes.
Mayor Sherman.
Yes. All right. Item number 5, visitors and delegations. We have Travis from Morgan County Ambulance Service here to do a presentation.
No, I have a PowerPoint.
Well.
Sorry.
We'll just have to watch you.
I guess. My name is Travis Freeman. I'm the director for the Morgan County Ambulance Service. I was asked to come speak to you guys tonight in follow-up to our consultative visit final report that we had delivered to us on June 23rd of this year. If you aren't familiar, we had a consultative visit completed for the Morgan County Ambulance Service March 7th, 8th, and 9th of this year. It included industry leaders from across the state, including nurses, physicians, and other EMS professionals, to come out and actually evaluate Morgan County Ambulance Service and give a final report on recommendations for sustainability. I have a physical copy of the report with me. It's also available online, or I can email it out to you if you'd like a copy of it. It's a very dry read if you're into those, but it's about 45 pages long and has a lot of useful information for us at the county and the ambulance service, as well as other people, including fire departments, law enforcement agencies, city officials, and the hospitals themselves. I do have a couple of tabs. I kind of just want to answer questions if you guys have any, but there's a few different key points in the final report that I thought were really beneficial. And throughout the final report, we've opened up to the community and to the hospitals and other agencies to be part of what we're calling the Morgan County Ambulance Sustainability Work Group. And what we're going to be doing with that is meeting monthly at the County Administration Building on Ensign Street in Fort Morgan. And our first meeting is August 28th at 1 o'clock. And it's also going to be available via Zoom if anybody can't attend in person. And we have about 20 people that have signed up so far, including law enforcement agencies and those fire departments and hospitals, as well as community members that live both in Brush and Fort Morgan. And my goal is to really hone down on the final report and figure out what our community needs are, and look at a community needs assessment that was completed by East Morgan County Hospital in 2019. That was the soonest one that I could find available to us. And taking a look at census reports and surrounding area counties, and taking a look at their ambulance services as well, what their budgets look like, and where their revenues are coming from. So before I get started with these points themselves, do you guys have any questions for me?
Mine would just be what the biggest takeaways were, but that sounds like that's what you're going to talk about. So.
I apologize. One of the biggest takeaways that I took, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't really had a formal meeting since the final report to talk about it itself. The biggest thing in our challenge is financials. It's revenues and where our revenues are coming from. As you guys know, Morgan County Ambulance is a enterprise fund currently, and we're structured underneath the county. So we don't receive any tax revenues. We don't receive any subsidies. The only revenue that our department and agency sees is from billing patients. And an average ambulance bill in the county right now is $2,000 to $2,500 to transport somebody to the hospital. That obviously gets billed out to patients' healthcare insurance, and then they're responsible for the remaining balance unless they have Medicare or Medicaid and a supplement. So that's the only way that we see revenue. None of the sales tax, none of the property taxes come to us, and this is unfortunately probably going to be the last year that Morgan County Ambulance is going to be self-sustaining, and the county is going to have to supplement some of these funds. With that, we talked in the final report. It was about 2 hours that we met that night. Allison was present with us and had a lot of very good questions, and I'm glad that you were there.
Thank you, appreciate that.
The points of topic that we talked about that night was legislation and regulation, system finance, mass casualty response, clinical care, medical direction, EMTS research, public access and communications, information systems, education systems, public education and prevention, and then integration of health services. I'm not going to talk about each of these points, specifically medical direction and EMTS research. The research piece really facilitates our agency entering data into the state system so that the state can really analyze what rural area agencies are providing as far as clinical care. We don't currently provide a lot of useful data because we fall under the normal scope of practice. If we were a critical care agency and providing some specialty services, we would be able to be beneficial in the clinical research piece. Medical direction is another one that I'm not going to touch on tonight. Our medical director is Dr. Collins, who's been our medical director for 44 years. And he is going to be announcing his retirement in the next couple of months from our agency, and we're currently in deliberations for who our next medical director is going to be. Information systems, there wasn't a lot of information for that one itself, as well as education, and then public education and prevention. The committee felt that Morgan County Ambulance does a good job in those areas, and that's one thing that we do pride ourselves in, is going to the public relations events and really reaching out to the communities, providing free CPR classes, hands-only CPR, and then participating in community events. Since revenue is one of the key points that they talked about, I'd like to start there. System finance covers, I believe it's 4 or 5 pages, and system finance really talks about where our revenues are coming from, what our expenses are, and how our agency compares to other agencies our size or similarly. If you guys do take a look at the report itself, there's graphs on each of these talking points. Each of these graphs themselves comes from data that was retrieved from a survey that was sent out earlier in the year. It was sent out in January or February, and it really comes from the community and what the community feels. The graphs themselves don't come from the committee. The recommendations come from the committee. All right. So, right now, Morgan County Ambulance Services budget is approximately $1.6 million, just over that. And that's our complete operating expense budget. So that includes salaries, buildings, vehicles, medical equipment, supplies, and everything in between. And at 1.6 million, the consultative group or the committee felt that we were extremely underfunded, and the Colorado EMS Systems Sustainability Task Force has developed tools to help local governments understand the true cost of EMS based on call volume and our system size. So they really take a look at call volume, and right now our calls for this year, we're expecting to see 3,400 plus calls. Today we're sitting at 1,900 year to date. The recommendation based off of this tool that they've developed, similarly sized agencies have a $4 million budget. So the recommendation was obviously increase revenues. In looking at system finance, they took everybody's budgets. So they took the fire departments, law enforcement agencies, cities, municipalities, and looked at every single budget that the county has available, right? And in looking at all of those, they found that the county itself, not the county structure, but the citizens, the communities, we invest over $17 million a year into law enforcement and fire departments. And 9% of that is invested as a percentage, right? So the ambulance service itself accounts for 9%, even though we don't receive any of those subsidies. So when you take a look at our budget compared to other budgets in the county, we're way less than a fully functioning 24/7 full-time agency. Do you have any questions about system finance?
So how do other similarly sized communities support the $4 million budget?
Yeah, so one of the recommendations that they had two specific recommendations. One was to make us a special purpose local government Title 32 special district or local government authority. The other one was to keep us underneath the umbrella of the county, with the understanding that the county would then have to supplement the budget itself. In conversations with them, it was felt that a sales tax was probably the best approach for our agency, given that we covered the entire service area and county of Morgan County, right? We're the only ambulance service. And so they had recommended capturing all of the people that stop off I-76 from Wiggins to Hill Rose and everything in between. A point that they made was Amazon sales and online shopping. Also, the sales tax from that comes to your cities and municipalities, right? So they did talk a little bit about property tax, but it didn't feel that that was as sustaining as a sales tax would have been.
I specifically asked if there were other funding options. The panel of experts all agreed that the sales tax is going to be the most viable option, and they were saying not something extravagant. They're talking 0.25% is what they were talking. Because I specifically asked grants, anything, and they said no.
They did talk about, different ways to fund it. They talked about hospitals. They talked about the special district and all of those things. Other agencies our size really need some help with finances, and they actually noted that the range from 3,000 to 5,000 calls per year tends to be the most insufficient and expensive, relying on taxpayer subsidies. Larger scale departments like Denver Health Paramedics, for example, they're running I'm exaggerating probably, but 70,000 calls, right? They have 16 ambulances on at a time. We don't have that. And so their sheer size of call volume makes up for their expenses, where ours does not. And we're really investing in readiness and the ability for us to respond to a 911 call. And hopefully through the work group, we can figure out where we should be. I don't know that we quite need to be at $4 million. We've been operating at 1.6 for a while.
I believe there was a number at 2.4, was it not?
That was what they said the difference was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The $2.4 million deficit. But if you don't mind for just a second, the experts all had the same concern, and that was sustainability. Not just sustainability from a financial perspective, but sustainability also from a manpower perspective, specifically Travis, who's working too many hours in a week. And, you know, as a young director, they were concerned that we'd burn him out and lose him. We definitely don't want to do that. But I think an important topic too, because I don't know if everyone knows it, is the difference between, I believe it's BLS and ALS. I think that's a really important distinction between what we have and what you offer that no one else can offer.
Correct. And I think that it's important to also note that since the last time I was here and visited with you, I have hired more staff, and so now we have 3 full crews on each shift. So I have 3 ambulances on duty at a time, 1 here in Brush, 2 in Fort Morgan, which has seemed to alleviate some of the stress of the staff and allowed for us to respond to transfers and calls faster. They've noticed a huge morale change.
That's awesome.
Even just hiring 1 more additional crew.
Would you mind explaining the difference between BLS
Yes.
and ALS?
Yes, so EMT is a 1-semester certification at a local community college. Right now, the state is offering funding through the Colorado Cares Forward that allows for reimbursement of any fees or tuition from college. And this last spring, we graduated 15 students from our class that successfully completed the classes themselves, which is more than we've ever seen. I've taught at the college for the last 6-7 years, and now I have the fortunate ability to lead the program at the college. We don't have a paramedic school, and that's one of the issues that Colorado has faced, is getting EMTs to go to paramedic school. And the difference is a paramedic is an additional 3 semesters, and it's 52 additional credit hours. And we have a really in-depth knowledge of pathophysiology and how your body's working, airway procedures, different medications. And an EMT in the state of Colorado can do or give 88 different medications or procedures, whereas a paramedic can do or give 233 different procedures and medications. We can bring the EKG into your home. We're managing patients' airways very aggressively. We're treating with medications pretty aggressively. And it's life-threatening situations that we're trying to minimize the risk of death. And we utilize both certification levels in their own scope of practice, and we really utilize them heavily, and we use them wisely, right? If I have a patient that doesn't require a paramedic, but they need to go to Greeley, I'm not going to send a paramedic. Now I have the ability where I can send 2 EMTs to go to Greeley and leave the paramedics here. So it's really kind of the level, the understanding of the body, how the body's working, medications, and then providing some real diagnostic tools in the field.
Thank you for explaining the difference.
Absolutely.
So with election coming up in November, have you guys thought about doing the legwork to get a sales tax on the ballot?
It probably won't happen this year if anything's done by the county commissioners. Like I said, our first meeting with the work group was going to be August 28th. I wanted to give everybody time to digest this information so that whenever they come to the meeting, they have a really good understanding of what the report says itself. And I really want to, we have a lot to discuss, right? There's 45 pages here. And so I want to pick out the key points of what the report says. I don't think that medical direction and data collection is something that's our top priority, right? I think that system finance, sustainability, and human resources with recruitment and retention is our biggest key pieces to how we're going to sustain EMS.
I think to her point, though, you had already said earlier that this was, according to the report, was going to be your last sustainable year. If it doesn't go on the ballot measure this year, how do you plan to survive?
We would be supplemented from the county general fund.
Okay.
And that's the plan for this coming year.
Okay.
So you got a little time.
A little bit. Any other questions about system finance? Legislation and regulation. I think I kind of hinted to it to the last time I was here. The state right now, like I said, has recognized a real need for EMS professionals, and there is a system sustainability work group at the state level. There's a lot of different work groups that the EMTS branch or the Emergency Medical Trauma Services branch has created, and one of those is system finance, right, and ambulance licensure. The state has not licensed ambulance services themselves, for quite a while. And starting July 1st of 2024, the state is going to be licensing ambulances and also giving the counties the ability to choose whose ambulance service responds in their county. For example, right now, the county is responsible for licensure. So every year, Morgan County Ambulance, even though we're owned by the county, has to apply to the county commissioners, and they can either choose to grant or deny our access to be able to respond to 911 calls within the county. They have fortunately given us the opportunity to run here. So the point being, if UC Health or Banner or any of these other agencies, Stadium Medical, all of those guys put in an application, it would ultimately be up to the state to license them, and then the county to decide who's going to operate within their jurisdiction. So the recommendations from that include just being involved in all of those work groups, really understanding how rules and regulations are going to change for ambulance services starting next year, and that's something that we've been doing for approximately the last year. And their regular meetings, we meet monthly, and usually 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, and so they're long meetings. But each different work group has some of the same people in it, so some of the same people sit in it, and it includes nurses and physicians and lawyers and county commissioners and a whole bunch of different people from different perspectives. So our work group here is really just going to be small scale to what they're doing at the state level. We did talk about mass casualty response, and the recommendations from mass casualty would include for us to meet regularly with our emergency manager within the county and coordinate with law enforcement and fire departments to create some type of mass casualty drills, and then also respond with the hospitals so that we can all prepare for mass casualty events. Sorry, it's a big report, really big. All right, another point was human resources. And human resources has been a challenge for our agency. As you guys know, when I came the last time, I had told you that the brush station here had been closed for 28 days, 29 days since the first of the year. So the first 3 months of the year, we were tracking that. And it was unsettling to know that the station was closed down here. And now I'm happy. It was very quick that we hired so many staff members that I can say we have 3 full crews on. To the point though, they noted that the overall morale of employees is really high. The staff has pride in the organization and the services that they provide. And the 72 120-hour work schedule, so the crews work 72 hours at one time. They come in, for example, Monday morning at 7 o'clock, and they don't go home until Thursday morning at 7 o'clock. Once they're off for 6 days. They also felt that it was held in high regard by the full-time staff members because many of them commute from work outside of the county. I have a lot of staff members that live in the Denver metro region that travel out here to work their 3 days, and then on their 6 days off, they can work for another agency or another part-time job. They did also note employee facilities do not meet the agency's needs and need updating to include expansion for the required staff that will enhance service deliverability. We moved my office within the last 3 months across the hall to our training room, so now we no longer have a training room, and that's now our office. And we had to make more bedrooms for staff. The building that we have right now was built in 1998. And it originally was a volunteer agency during that time, so we didn't have full-time staff members till about 2006. And so that building then got expanded, and we started building the living quarters. Well, now we're 25 years later, needing to look at expanding it again. And I know the commissioners have started looking at other buildings or other opportunities, especially in the Wiggins area, for expansion down there, should it ever come where we need to put a full-time crew down there. Our call volumes right now don't necessarily support a complete full crew or 6 people. If I was to put a full crew down there, it'd be 6 people full-time, 2 per shift, and I have 3 shifts. So they're looking at the buildings, taking a look at those, and really kind of figuring out expansion propositions.
Brush is fairly new though. So.
Brushes is new, and it was built
8 years ago? Was it about 8 years ago?
Yeah, something like that. It was about that time. And that building itself was over $500,000 to build. It only has 2 bedrooms and 2 bays or garages. And it sits on a lot that we can expand if we needed to. That building, the building in Fort Morgan, we don't have any room for expansion for more ambulance garages. On the south side of the building, though, there is plenty of room to expand living quarters if we needed to, add more bedrooms and office space and those types of things. Any questions?
You said they can go work for a different agency once they do their 72-hour share. Is there a limit they can do? Like
Between
the two in a week?
No.
Okay.
No, there is no limit. The state has looked at that. One of the rules that the state was trying to really figure out if it was going to be beneficial at all was making it so that if you work a 24-hour shift, you had guaranteed 10 hours downtime.
Right.
As an employer, if you're working 24 hours, I can't guarantee, and it was 10 hours uninterrupted. So that doesn't make sense as an employer to try and hire somebody for 24 hours. They eventually got that fixed and kind of sorted out, but that's where these work groups come through, is we're really like honing down on each of those things, down to even how the ambulance logos are on the vehicles and what the Star of Life is and how big it is and what it represents.
Cool.
So they can't, so if somebody went from a 72-hour shift here, could they go straight to a 72-hour shift so they don't monitor that?
That's tough.
There's no way to monitor it
Yeah.
between agencies. It's purely employment. If somebody, for example, was working for me and they came in and worked their 72s, there's no way for me to even know if they have another job, one, and then there's no way for their second job to know how many hours they worked.
Has it been a concern for you at this point?
It hasn't. Most of my staff works a part-time job elsewhere, so it's not a full-time employment opportunity with another area facility. But they work in hospitals, which are 12-hour shifts typically in the emergency room, or they'll do standby events at concerts and Red Rocks and those types of things, or a transport agency, so they're only doing interfacility transfers from one hospital to the next. Most of the staff is very cognizant of how much sleep they've had and their sleep routine, so they get off and they're pretty tired at that point, so they're going to go home with the understanding that they need at least 12 to 24 hours of downtime before they start doing something else.
Okay.
Cool.
If you guys are interested again in the final report or getting a copy of it, I have it recorded in a Zoom video format that is really not great quality, so I'm apologizing if you listen to it later on. It was recorded in the gymnasium, which is very echoey and not very easy to hear, but I can send you guys an email with the final report if you'd like. And if you would like to be a part of the work group, we would welcome your expertise and opinions, and I can also send you guys those emails as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis.
Thanks, Travis.
All right, next up we have citizen comments. I don't see anybody else here, so I think we're good on that. If they were, they could speak for 5 minutes. Okay, number 6 in management, a building permit fee reduction request. Tyler.
All right, good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. So before you tonight is, as it says, a request for reduction of the building permit for East Morgan County Hospital. They are doing a replacement of their exhaust fan and dehumidification system on their roof for their pool. And as is typical, not just for them, but of a lot of nonprofits, they request for a reduction of the building permit fee since they're a nonprofit. A lot of what they do is a benefit to the community. And so the building permit fee for that is $636.87. So they're asking for a 50% reduction, which would bring it down to $318.44. And I think we've historically always said yes to their request. Doesn't mean that you have to, but They are bringing that request for council, and as our policy goes, well, policy is procedure, best practice is that we bring it to council for approval instead of staff just administering that as a yes or a no.
For the 50%, right?
For the 50% reduction, correct.
Seems too fair. Does anyone have any
How many times has this happened before?
For all nonprofits?
For the hospital?
I didn't track that, probably at least a dozen times. I'd say.
Unacceptable.
Again, it's not a huge dollar amount at all.
Does anybody want to make a motion on that one? If there's any more.
I move that we approve the building permit fee reduction request for East Morgan County Hospital at the 50% as recommended by staff.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Counselor Tyree?
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer?
Yes.
Counselor Garrell?
Yes.
Counselor Lindstrom?
Yes.
Mayor Sherman?
Yes. That motion passes. Thank you, Tyler. Finance.
I move we approve disbursements and payroll for July 11th, 2023 through July 24th, 2023 totaling $720,105.67.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Garrell?
Yes.
Counselor Tyree?
Yes.
Counselor Lindstrom?
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer?
Yes.
Mayor Sherman?
Yes. The motion passes. Staff reports. Tyler Purvis, Assistant City Administrator.
All right, I've got a handful of things that I'll briefly go over. Feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. The first one, and follow up from our discussion for the management item at our last council meeting about the right-of-way vacations that council said no on, but directed staff to work with the property owners and our city attorney on coming up with an agreement. So we're working that out. I actually met with the Danielsons and our attorney right before this meeting to discuss kind of what we generally outlined. So they had a couple questions, and then we added a couple thoughts to that. So the hope is at our next meeting, we'll come back with an agreement that everybody on our side is satisfied enough with for council's consideration and decision on. The next one, just a general FYI really. So CIRSA, our insurance company, with the hail damage that we had back on the 29th of June, I believe that was, they send out their adjusters. The property adjuster came out last week, and the vehicle one came out 2 weeks ago. And so that, for the vehicles, there was just under $171,000 worth of damage to the city vehicles, which is a lot. So 4 vehicles are going to be total loss, all police vehicles, but we'll be working with CIRSA on getting everything rectified on that. So
Sorry, Greg.
the newest vehicle being one of them.
Oh, no.
That's what insurance is for. And ironically, I don't know if I should say this or not, CIRSA was shocked at our deductible. It was one deductible across the board, and they were like, "How do you guys still have that?" I was like, "I don't know."
So,
That's
don't change it.
I'm going to show you how you did that.
Yeah.
They give me the option and I keep it.
I have a question, and this might be kind of out of place, and she might be able to speak to this, though. We had a hard enough time getting that last vehicle. If we're going to total 4 police vehicles, well, I mean, what's the outlook on getting them replaced?
That's more of a chief question to me.
Well, we can wait
He's
till
up
it's your
next.
turn.
Give you a few
I mean,
minutes to
like I
think
said,
about it.
I've got obviously the one car that I was anticipating getting this year. I talked to the dealership a week ago, and he did say that the plants in Chicago that are building the Explorers that we're currently going with have been producing about 500 cars per week per facility. So he says they're still manufacturing. How quickly we could get that many, I couldn't say. Unfortunately, I'd have to talk to them.
Are they undrivable? Because sometimes when the hail hits like a hinge, they can't pop out. They just totaled the car, right? So
Yeah,
are they still usable right now, or are they still?
Yeah, no, so all the cars we have after replacing the glass, they're all still operational. It's just body damage primarily. Luckily the 2022, the one we just got this year, it didn't get damaged. It was in a garage. But the 2021 was the one that's the second newest, that was the one that was beat up. And it's still drivable. Headlights damaged on it, as well as, again, more just body damage than anything else.
If you need a high
Let's they let them drive until they drop, because then if they get in an accident, it doesn't matter.
If there's a high-speed chase, just use that one, right? I mean,
Just-
if you gotta ram somebody or whatever.
Sorry, Tyler, go ahead.
That's all right. Interesting conversation. One with plenty of laughter involved. All right. Just a couple of things that will be coming up that we're excited about. So we have an annexation that we're working on the final details about to bring to City Council. Hopefully, if not next meeting, the meeting after, we'll have that before City Council to get the ball rolling on annexation with some plans for commercial and industrial properties. As well as a special use permit that will be coming up at the next council meeting as well for your consideration. Sorry, the next one, because we got to get the notifications out in time. And then the last thing I have is the subdivision that council approved with conditions on it. One of those conditions being approval for the civil plans. This is for the property just next to the Rush Secondary Campus. They've done now for wrapping up the final details, so we did record that plat today. Loranda took that over. They're expecting to close on that Thursday. If everything goes accordingly, their building plan review is underway, and so hopefully we'll see a building permit issue for the retail store out there within a couple weeks, possibly. That's all I got. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Brandon Flexsteiner, Chief of Police. Interim still?
I don't have anything to report outstanding, just business as usual for all of us, but if anybody has any questions regarding anything?
I asked my question already.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Joanne. Finance.
Real quickly, the week before I had my auditors here. They were here Wednesday and Thursday and half of Friday, and they were out of here. They are busy putting that audit together, and we plan on having it to the state by the 31st, so we do not have to do an extension. And then Scott and I were looking at calendars when they can come and meet with council. He's unavailable our 2 council meetings in August, so he will be here in September to go over the audit with the council. Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Joanne. Loranda Packard, City Clerk.
I have a few things. The first one is that we've advertised for the candidates' information meeting to be on August 8th. And that's the beginning period for circulating petitions. You only have 20 days to do that. So that will kick that off. And then what we have on the ballot is 1 seat per ward for 4 years, and then plus the Ward 2 seat, the 2-year. And I'll talk more about that in work session. I will be emailing you guys to line up a special meeting for the new officer swearing in, and then also for council retreat for the budget. And then also Dan and I have been discussing the ballot question about chickens. And so we're going to be seeking guidance from you as far as, do we want to keep it broad or do we want it to be specific? And the advantage to keeping it broad would be saving some staff time, some of our attorneys' time getting that ordinance ready ahead of time. Or we could...
And then we can kind of create it if it gets approved.
Yeah, once it's approved in November, then we would start the start the ordinance process as normal.
Okay.
And then they would still have the public hearing segment, everything just as we normally would with passing an ordinance. And then the last thing is that we've started hiring for the court clerk and deputy city clerk position. That's all I have.
I have a question on, and I don't remember from other ballots, but as people start circulating their petitions, are there any rules against us signing them
As existing.
as existing council?
Counselor members.
I will come back to you on that.
I think we can,
I feel like
Yeah,
I signed.
because I feel like I
I
signed
feel
Justin's and he
like-
signed mine, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking I had, but I'm like, maybe I wasn't supposed to. I
Yeah.
didn't remember.
As long as you're a registered elector.
Yep. And not words.
I cannot, but I think I'm the only one who's disqualified.
Okay. Very good. All right. Dan Cobb, our city attorney.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Loranda, for taking the chicken thing so I didn't have to, but I think that really just comes down to, do you guys want me to draft an ordinance that lays out the specific rules before And I think that might be a little premature, or do you just want me to draft a question that says, would you like us to allow and regulate chickens? And then if that passes, we draft an ordinance. So
Yeah, I like the.
my phone cut out. I was looking for a little guidance there. Which
Yeah.
way you guys want to go?
I say make it broad.
I like the broad one.
If it does pass by a
If they're
chance.
interested, then we can create the ordinance
Yep.
at that point.
Okay. I'm just trying to read my chicken scratch here. We did talk about the Danielsons.
Pun intended.
Tyler's on top of that. And then I have a couple of items of overall fees and fines and bag fees that we can discuss in the work session. That's all I had.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Monty Torres.
Just a few items this evening. The first one from Lance Schwint, our Recreation Director. He just wanted to relay over the last couple of weeks, everything's been going really good, very busy. His rec week went very well, good participation there. Then over this last weekend, he had a tournament that went very well also. And then the golf course has been staying pretty active as well. So really positive for the community and recreation. Also, today was a soft opening for Glassy's. I think it's the name. Is it Glassy or Glossy? Glassy. Glassy. And that's the old Chinese restaurant. They converted into an Indian food restaurant and bar. So today is a soft opening, and then I believe later on they'll do like a grand opening, but we'll get more information. We'll hear more about that. Loranda mentioned the council retreat. We got to get that one knocked out so that we can start our budget process for next year. Then also, Dan and I visited a little bit about the number 7 Circle Drive, the house that burned down a few years ago. So that one we are, I did visit with the person who's got the current tax lien on it, and he was going to get a hold of you, Dan, just some follow-up questions, but we hope to get some movement on that. That's all I have.
Sounds good.
Very good. Thank you, Monty. All right,
Oh,
next up.
I did forget one thing. Community barbecue this week. I believe it's Wednesday.
It is Wednesday.
Community barbecue / customer appreciation barbecue. City's always worked with the chamber on that, and Lance takes a key role in it. Have good entertainment, and bison tips is on the menu, and burgers and hot dogs, I think. And the bison tips, usually Peter Cisneros makes those into bison fajitas. That's what he usually does with those. So we always have a large turnout for that.
All right. Mayor and council reports. Do any councilors have anything to share?
How's Dale Clark doing? Is he on the way back or?
I saw him
I saw
today.
him just the
Dale.
other day.
Oh, yeah, Dale's doing really good. He's back
Good.
to work. Doing well, just catching up.
Yeah. Cool. Good.
Lonnie brought up what I was going to bring up initially about the community barbecue being on Wednesday, which I believe is also the start of the vendors market. So that's going to be the first week of that. And then just as a reminder, there's going to be a lot of trailers going around Brush as fair kicks off this week. So excited for that, and there's going to be a lot more ag in the community as they're moving around with their animals. So I guess everyone just be aware of that. That's all I got.
Very good. I went to the CML Executive Board retreat last weekend. I think it was. And that was, I learned a lot. It was very informative, but we learned that we don't have anybody on the policy committee, and they kind of want, there's a lot of unrepresented communities, so I'm going to be appointing Allison to the CML policy committee, so we can be represented and have a voice there too.
Thank you.
Do we need to do anything with that, or you just gotta let them know?
I just need to send them an email, and then they were gonna, I reached out today to find out what exactly we need to do, and he just said you just need to let Heather know, so I will let Heather know if nobody has any objections. That's all I have. But also listening to people from other councils, and I've reiterated this before, is just makes me so thankful to have you guys here. So, there's some,
There are some contentious councils
yeah,
out there.
we are very, very fortunate, so. And that's all I got. If there's nothing else, I'd look for a motion to adjourn and move into our work session.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?